Since I was a kid, I've been fascinated by stories. Not just the what, but the how. How lives change. How moments unfold. I realize the answers, they aren't always in books, but they're with people too. That's why we started this show, to uncover the extraordinary in the everyday, one story at a time. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Storytellers. This is a new show we're doing on ACTV. It's a show that we're going to do to chronicle the lives of significant people from Anderson County, people that have made an impact on our community. Might be doctors, lawyers, athletes, people of faith, ministers, whoever. And this is our pilot show, and I'm super excited about tonight's first episode because the two gentlemen we're interviewing, if you grew up as a young boy or girl in Lake City in the 1970s, these guys were your heroes. I watched them play basketball, football, baseball. They played with my brothers. So tonight I'd like to welcome to the Storyteller stage Mr. Clark Wormsley, Mr. Jody Wright. Pretty outstanding coaches in your own right, but I was telling Clark earlier, Jody, we're missing somebody. If we had Shelley Sexton Collier here, we would have three people from Lake City, town of 1,200 people, 1,300 people, and between the state championships you guys have in high school as high school coaches, and then you throw Shelley's natty in, that's a pretty good run for three people from Lake City.
For a small town. And Wade Mitchell, too. Wade won one at 85 at Webb. A couple.
Yeah, he was assistant in football one year.
Okay, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
So he's got two.
Yeah. Well, a lot of athletic prowess coming out of Lake City. And I mean, you guys didn't ask for this, but I'm a little younger than y'all, and I remember growing up as a kid hearing stories about you guys, and the reason that when I first talked to Ryan about this idea and I wanted to interview you all, I wanted to interview you together because growing up it was Jody and Clark, Clark and Jody, and it was, and that's like, I don't know that, I wasn't aware that y'all had separate lives because whenever y'all were, I mean, even my parents, it was when they would talk about what was going on at Lake City High School, Jody and Clark, Clark and Jody, and to me, that's kind of the way it's always been with you guys.
Well, we had a good run, that's for sure.
You know, again, I couldn't tell my story, without Clark, and I don't think he could do his. With we were again we were inseparable and insufferable at times, to others, but we were tight, and just man, what a great time we had growing up in a small town, and again playing ball and the stories and we've got plenty of those.
Yeah. Well, let's just jump into it. Talk a little bit about growing up in Lake City and the influence of the city and its people on how you guys developed and grew.
Go ahead, Clark.
Okay. Well, when I was younger, or when we were younger growing up, really, your life was centered around the church. And my great-grandfather's grocery store.
Oh, yeah.
And then growing up in the fairgrounds and on High Street. So, younger days, the city wasn't as spread out and everything, or having access to, so many people. But the church was very important, First Baptist Church in Lake City. That's where we kind of met, and in the nursery together, and Sunday school classes, and
so at what point did they realize they had trouble on their hands when you guys got together in the nursery?
I think Dixie Massengill figured it out.
It didn't take long.
Pretty early on.
Didn't take long.
Yeah, and maybe the time when they asked us to sing in church, and we got out about, I think I got the first line out, and then he started laughing.
Yeah, giggling.
And he laughed all the way through.
Giggled all the way through.
Yeah. So they knew it's probably not a good idea to get them to sing, but being around the grocery store and meeting a bunch of people, and then in the fairground and on High Street, there was all kinds of guys to play sports with and do things and all that. But there was, and we'll talk about it later, I'm sure, just a lot of people and good people in Lake City that were almost like grandparents to me. Just like my grandparents, there was a lot of of people, older people that I looked up to, and then it was just that small, close knit community.
Mm-hmm.
You had a lot of eyes on you.
Yeah,
I mean, you really did. I mean, it was not one of these. You did not grow up in isolation, and parents talked, and you knew. It just, I think, I can remember just a lot of times, feeling you didn't want to disappoint somebody,
right?
Because again, you went to church with them, or they were involved in the community somehow. So I always just felt like, again, there was always people, in Lake City that were looking out for you, and wanting you to do good things. Do the right things and choices, and so I always felt that there was it wasn't just my mom and dad. Matter of fact, his mother, she spanked me more than mine did.
Well, you both kind of mentioned sports. At what point did you realize that sports was going to be a major influence in your lives, and explain how that emerged a little bit?
Well, I think we were just, again, growing up in a small town. There's a couple things to do: hunt, fish, and play ball.
Mm-hmm. And we did all of them.
And we did all of them. And so I think at an early age, just growing up, and being involved in every sport. His dad was very active in the Optimist League, and it's all I wanted to do. I mean, if that was the thing about. There was games going on somewhere where the corkball game, Nerf ball game, basketball game at the community center. So that's all that I wanted to do. I mean, I just wanted to it was the best day ever when you could hang out, and play touch football. Or go down to the ball field and play on the outdoor courts and just play all day.
The best day would be the days we'd go down to the ball field, play some touch football, go over and somebody have a basketball game going. Play some basketball there on the concrete outdoor court. And then somebody come down with a stick and court, and you'd end up playing court. And that was our babysitter. That's where we would hang out.
Kept you out of trouble, I guess.
Yeah. But I remember, I guess, sports-wise, your grandfather, Dump Peebley, ran the Little League. If you played Little League in baseball in Lake City, Dump Peebley was everything.
He was the man.
He did everything. He lined the field. He got the bases out. He umpired. He probably got the concession stand ready at it. But you had people like that made it fun to go play Little League baseball. And then with basketball, you had B.J. Young was one of my coaches for a long time, and he made it fun. And again, I'm using the word fun because that's what it was. It was fun. Right. And then my dad and B.J. did a lot with the youth football. And that's for the first time through youth footballs when I met a lot of guys from Briceville and Rosedale, and as we started playing youth football, so your friendships started spreading out too, and it all happened through sports. So that was when I just fell in love with it. I loved any type of sports and competition and making friends. And
just curious, when did you guys start realizing that you were good, that you were pretty good at it?
I don't know, that's a good question.
Still working on it, not sure yet.
Honestly, I think there's stages you go through.
Yeah.
You think, when you're playing Little League basketball and all that, and things are going well, and, you think you're good, and then you step up to the next level. I remember when I finished Little League, back then, they didn't have anything above that except for like an American Legion team. And I was like, 12, and Wade Mitchell and Park Sharp and Mike Lovely and Tiny Houck and Tim Brown and some of those guys were on that older team. And I got to finish out that summer playing with him. And boy, I wasn't good. I thought I was good at the Little League level.
Yeah.
But when I got with those guys, you got to, things change, and it puts you in your place. And that's when you decide, okay, do I want to be good?
Right.
What
you
do
want
I
to put the work in.
Yeah, and that's when, the coaches I had around me and my dad especially really helped out.
Yeah.
I think too, looking back, it was easy to fall into that trap of being Lake City good. You could go, we could go about any place in town, and we were the two best guys there.
Right.
In most any sport. I think the thing that I can remember just again going to basketball camps in the summertime and playing against people from all over the South. And realizing, hey, there's a bigger world out there, and that was one of the things that drove me and helped me realize, there's a difference between being good in a small town and being good at the next level, and I guess kept us all hungry. Clark traveled around playing a lot of travel baseball on some really good teams against really good players, and I think again we played all the sports. But baseball was his love and basketball was my love. So that's where all the extra time went in, and but it was, I think, you get about that junior year in high school and your body's starting to, mature a little bit. You can hold your own physically. And I think our junior year was probably kind of a awakening for us that man, we can play with these guys, because we had been freshmen and sophomores playing with the older guys, with the Tiny Houcks, Scott Templins, and all those guys, and again those other guys in baseball. And I think junior year for me was when I thought, man, I can I can do this.
Right. So when did you guys become a tandem? I mean, when did it become Clark and Jody and Jody and Clark?
Well, I think Clark said, we became friends in the nursery.
Yeah, in church.
In church, and just kind of became that. And I think, the story that I can still remember, we're probably the only two first graders that got out of paddling.
That's right.
And it was because we were in gym class.
Yeah.
And so we were supposed to walk back to Miss Atkins' class. And
let me stop you a second. That's the same story I was going to tell, but I think we changed teachers from doing things in alphabetical order at Lake City Elementary School.
Yeah.
Because up to that point, when we were in first, second grade, they would have your seating charts in alphabetical order, which put Wormsley and Wright together. Or you'd have to line up to go somewhere in alphabetical order. Put us in the back of the line. So we're in the back. Go ahead.
We're in the back of the line. And so... I think I looked at him and said, I'll race you. He said, okay.
I said, I'm faster than you.
So we raced down there.
No, we go back down to the gym.
We ran back down to the gym. And I don't remember who won, him or, but
we kept going back and forth.
I think it was because the other one was going to quit.
Yeah.
I won, and then
you didn't. Let's
then
do
he
it
win,
again.
let's go again. And so next thing you know, we're in there, 10, 15 minutes. And we finally realized
Everybody's gone.
Oh, everybody's gone. So we make our way back to class, and
Miss Atkins.
Miss Atkins pulls us out there, and and so that was kind of, I think, the beginning of the friendship. And then of course too, just I think the thing that drew us, I never played with a better competitor than Clark, never. And so I think we were a lot alike in that regard, that, we both hated to lose, and both really wanted to be good. And so I think that was that natural thing. And then
in football, they started calling us the touchdown twins.
Touchdown twins.
That was when it kind of, I think more people around town kind of, there's the touchdown twins, because, either he'd score a touchdown, I scored a touchdown, or we usually scored a lot of touchdowns.
Yeah, we did. And I thought he was the funniest guy I ever met. He thought I was the funniest guy. And so it just became, that was just, we became wanted to spend, my free time with him, and he wanted to spend his free time with me, and
we'd make up games.
Yeah,
the greatest catch ever.
Yeah.
Remember the Nerf ball we'd have, so you could make the greatest catch of all time. We'd throw balls for hours.
Well, what was it like? I mean, both of you guys grew up, in Lake City. You were Lake City Lakers, all the way Lake City Elementary, Lake City Middle, Lake City High School. What did it mean to you guys to put on that Columbia blue jersey and play for the Lake City Lakers? What did that? I mean, playing for your hometown school. What did that mean to y'all?
Well, it started for me in 6th grade. Now, you had gone to.
I went to Caryville my 4th, 5th, and 6th grade
4th,
years.
5th, and 6th grade. Jody had to something about the zoning or whatever. He had to leave.
Lived out of the county.
So the teachers got a break for those 3 years. But 6th grade, I made the elementary school team, and I remember getting that jersey. And because growing up, and Gary Bates was the coach, and we were so lucky to have somebody like Gary Bates because he made it. I remember we played Sweet Georgia Brown, and we had a blue and white basketball. And we had fancy warm-up tops, and we're at elementary school, but he made it like we were the little Tennessee Volunteers or something.
Right.
And just being in 4th grade and 5th grade and watching all that, and then making the team and getting that the satin blue, Columbia blue shorts and the white top.
Converse,
blue Converse.
Yeah.
And it just meant so much. And then later on, the same feeling when you make the high school teams, and because, my dad and Jody's dad being the principal and everything, we were at every event. I mean, when I was growing up, if there was a football game at Lake City, we were there. Basketball, we were there. So I just grew up going to Lake City High School athletics.
Right.
And, that was something I always looked forward to.
Yeah.
And you saw those guys, and that was, again, growing up in a small town, everybody's got heroes.
Sure.
And, those guys were, so we're in that place, and we've got that uniform. So, there's something special about growing up in a small town.
Yeah.
And again, in a small town where everything revolves around the athletic scene. And it was a great place. But that was all you wanted to do was grow up, and play for Lake City.
And
Matter of fact, our goal was, I can remember laying in, the dorm at LMU. Our goal was to come back and coach at Lake
That's
City.
right.
That was we wanted to come back and coach at Lake City.
Coach baseball, coach basketball.
Yeah.
Wow.
And then, like Jody kind of talked about earlier, you didn't want to let people down. Once you got to the high school level and everything, you represented Lake City Lakers. And if you go in Buck Wilson's store, he's going to talk to you about who you play, whether it be basketball, baseball, and football. Who you got coming up. That's going to be a tough game, or you play Oneida, or you play Scott County, or everybody in town, nowhere. You go to Chapman's restaurant, you go to the snack bar, you go to the convenience store, people are talking about, hey, we got a big game, you guys better be ready. And you didn't want to let them down.
Yeah. If y'all remember Ann Swisher, when I was finishing high school, she came up to me one day and she said, where are you going to school? And I said, Miss Swisher, I'm not going to go to school. I said, I can't afford it. And she looked at me with fury in her, and she goes, I don't want to hear that. Yeah. She said, I'm not accepting that.
Yeah.
She said, this is not my mother. This is one of my friends' mothers.
Yeah.
And she says, no, I'm not going to hear that. I won't hear that. You're going to school. I mean, and then she set out, you can fill out this paperwork. You can work here. You can, and she, this is not my mother, but she would not accept no for an answer.
Absolutely.
And I'm sure you guys had those folks too.
We did.
That would not accept anything but better for you.
Yep.
So what was you both talked about, growing up in the small town. What was it like when you transitioned from playing the Oneidas, playing the Woodburgs, to going to college and playing at that level, was it harder for you making that transition from a small school to at the college level?
Well, the way we got to LMU is a unique story in and of itself. So Clark was going, I was telling Kim about this last night, and you look in our annual senior year, hey man, it's been a great run. He was going to Carson Newman.
Yeah.
And going to miss you, good luck up there. Well, I'm up at LMU that summer working at a basketball camp. And Coach Dean Bailey walked in, and I knew Coach Bailey because my dad had played for Coach Bailey, basketball and baseball at LMU. And he's walking in there, and I'm talking to him, and he said, "Hey, he's gruffing her, I said, "What's going on?" He said, "I'm looking for a first baseman." I said, "First baseman?" He said, "Yeah." I said, "I got you a guy." And I said, "Right now he's at orientation at Carson Newman."
I was at Carson Newman.
And I said, "But I've got a guy here for you." So I go in there and I call his mom and dad. He's at Carson Newman.
That was a long distance phone call.
Yeah,
those days.
And so they asked, I said, "Can he be up here?" I said, "He can be up here, in
in 2 days."
2 days.
So you didn't know that. You were just volunteering.
Yeah, I was
to be there
volunteering.
today.
I knew and so he came up there.
So I'm at orientation.
Yeah.
And I call home, and they said, Mr. Wright's called, and the coach at LMU wants to meet with you. They need a first baseman, left-handed pitcher, and Jody told him about you, and so my parents couldn't take me. So Johnny Cox, who was the assistant coach at Lake City, and had gone to LMU. He took me to LMU on my visit, and went around and everything, and then they made me a really good offer and gave me an opportunity as a freshman at Carson Newman. I was going to be behind a senior first baseman, a couple of senior outfielders, and I was going to have to wait a little bit to play. So this just worked out great, and Jody was going to be there playing basketball, and a couple other guys I knew were up there. So it was a blessing that he happened to be in the gym when Coach Bailey came through.
Yeah.
But to answer your question, it was an eye-opening experience. We both left Lake City as, decorated players. I left as, a big-time scorer. Clark left as, one of the best baseball players to come through there. And then we get there and realize, man, everybody's good. Everybody's bigger, faster, stronger. And so it was an eye-opening experience. And freshman year is hard just because you're away from home.
Yeah.
It's school. It's a new environment. But athletically was the hardest thing ever in my life. Just because you're 18 years old and you're competing against guys 21, 22, 23 years old, men that are good and better. And I think it was thank goodness I had him to lean on, and he
we were going through the same
we were going
stuff.
through the same things, and it was hard. It was discouraging. It was just there was. Gosh, you just wondered, man, am I good enough? Am I good enough to play here? And so, but again, once you get that freshman year behind you and you realize, hey, I can do this. But freshman year was awful hard because again, growing up in a small town, and where you were the best player on the team, and now you're struggling just to survive.
And then you got academics,
Well, that was one of my questions. How were y'all prepared?
Thank goodness for Sandra Towns.
Yeah.
She helped me so much. We had her 2 years, junior year and senior year in English. And I don't know if I'd have made it in English if it wasn't for her classes. And she helped teach us how to write and how to do things and the importance of reading and all kinds of things. I could go on and on with her, but then you got a whole different routine. The routine of college and college athletics and academics is so much different than what you're used to, in high school.
Did you feel like you were prepared academically and athletically, physically for the grinds of college?
I struggled a little bit academically the first the first quarter.
First quarter.
Yeah, I think a lot do. You just have to figure it out. You got to figure out how to study, how to go to the library, what you have to do, and all of that. Athletically, I was prepared. I had played, like Jody said, college. I mean, the travel ball and all that kind of stuff. But until you really get out there, I mean, at one point, I was playing as a freshman, playing some, and at one point, I never will forget this. We had a meeting after one of the games, and coach was mad, and he was going through, and he's like, "Wormsley, you don't even have a batting average. You're 0 for 8." So I'm just like, as small as a down.
How old were you?
I was a freshman in college.
18?
Yeah, and I go back. I'm telling, I'm gonna get cut. I'm not gonna be able to do this. But I remember probably 3 things that freshman year that stood out to me. I got it. My first time I ever got in a game was a pinch runner at UT Chattanooga, and I'm getting my lead, and they throw back. I dive back. Well, in high school you dive back, whatever. Right. Their first baseman was a big old dude. He caught it, and he hit me right in the face, busted my nose. My nose is bleeding, blood down my uniform. The older guys are yelling at me from the dugout, "Rookie, turn your head," So I learned to turn my head, when you dive in.
Were you safe?
I was safe.
Okay.
I was there, plenty of time. It was just what they do in college, You learn they're going to hit you hard. And so when I played first base, I had, to do the same. But I was supposed to take out a guy at second base another time later on, a little bit later on my freshman year. And I didn't take out the shortstop that was coming across. They turned a double play to end the inning. My coach met me about halfway off the field, and I didn't play for like 3 games because I didn't take out the shortstop on the double play. That would never happen in high school.
Right.
You learn a different way of doing it, and it was a lot tougher. And then another time, I'd made a real good play in the outfield, and one of the seniors, as I was coming in the dugout, everybody was high-fiving, you feel great, hit me right in the elbow with a fungo bat. You remember?
Yep.
Hit me right in the elbow. I mean, it hurt. And he goes, "Don't get cocky, rookie." I mean, they keep you in your place.
Right.
So you go from being way up here to trying to figure it out.
Right. Jody, I was one of the questions I wanted to ask, and you started to mention it just a second ago. Did it help you having Clark with you in school, and I mean having you guys on the same campus? I
don't know that I make it without Clark. I really don't. It was probably just, I guess, the toughest year of our lives.
Yeah.
And the fact that we had each other. I could come back there and, I could tell him stuff that I could tell nobody else.
Right.
And vice versa. And, I think just the fact that we had that, that friendship and I think too that drive. There was not a lot of people that we watched grow up. There wasn't people from Lake City going to play college ball.
Right.
I don't know that I played with anybody in any sport that played collegiately. And so we were those 2 guys. And so I think there was that mindset. There was a lot of guys that left, but they didn't last.
Yeah.
So I think there was that mindset of, those guys won't last either.
We're not quitting.
And so I think that was, you'd had to kill me because I knew there were people in Lake City that were looking up, young guys that watched us grow up. I wasn't going to give up, and
I can tell you from another side of it, because my dad was one of them. He was living. He didn't get that opportunity. He was living vicariously through what you guys were doing, and like he was keeping up with you guys when y'all left to go to school. Yeah. And I know there were other people in the community like that. I mean, you guys carried the hopes and dreams of a lot of people when you left to go play ball. I mean, it was a big deal to the community. And did y'all feel that?
I felt it every time I'd come home. I mean, we'd come in and, be different places or come to a sporting event and you just felt, people were behind you and supporting you and asking you, how are things going? And then as you got, little older and things were going better for you, you're, playing more.
You had a batting average?
Which actually had a batting average. It was like, hey, we're really proud of you, things like that.
Was there ever a time, just out of curiosity, was there ever a time that y'all didn't see each other as teammates but rivals as athletically?
No, the only thing, and it's a good thing, that I remember is we used to play one-on-one. I mean, it was wide open one-on-one when we play basketball. A lot of times his dad would open up the gym. I think he did on purpose.
Yeah.
Would open up the gym and work with us, and then after a while, he'd say, "Okay, let's play to 10 or whatever," and we would just go at it,
Did you ever get in a fight?
We got, and I think that was why we growing up in Little League baseball, never on the same team,
right?
But football, always on the same team. Little League basketball, we got on the same team.
Yeah.
But the worst, I hated playing against Clark because he was my best friend.
Yeah.
And then but your best friend, well, you just got. I wanted to. I felt like I had to prove myself to him.
Yep.
He had to prove himself to me.
Yep.
So those were misery. So at that point, I think we vowed that we were always going to be on the same team. So
it was a lot easier.
Yeah. So playing whatever the game was, it was understood we were on the same team. If it was 2-man team, 3-man team, it was
In school
at recess.
In school, we'd be at Jody and we'd say, okay, we'll take like whoever would be the last picks.
Right.
And then we'd play the other 5 that were good athletes. That's we'd be with guys that didn't play much or anything, and that'd be our recess football games.
Yeah.
Right.
Just so we could be on the same team. We're gonna be on the same team, but we'll take so and so.
We'll take these bottom 3 guys.
Well, it was funny because when Ryan and I first started talking about the idea for the show, I called Jody to see if he'd be willing to do it, and the first thing I said was like, "Hey, you think Clark would do it?" And he's like, "Well, I don't know." I asked him. He goes, I mean, "I'm sure he will." He said, "I talk to him about every week." And I said, "Still?" And he goes, "Oh yeah." He goes, "There's not a week that goes by hardly that we don't talk." And I was like, after we hung up, I was thinking, man, how many years has that been? I mean,
what's unique about it is again just that we were so close. And then our lives took us kind of different directions. But we
got into coaching.
Got into coaching. But when I got married, I bought a house literally a mile from him. So our wives became friends, and we still did everything together. I mean, it was really until kids really started coming and then taking your time, and then he was chasing his boys on the baseball field and my girls. So, but I mean, still in the summertime we'd get together and float the river and fish and hang out. So really it's been it has been a lifelong friendship.
Right.
Well, that kind of catapults us into the next part. What were some of the key moments that you guys realized, hey, I'm going to move from the playing part of this into the coaching? Walk us. How did that happen for you? Because Clark, you went baseball, football, and Jody, you've been basketball forever. How did that happen? How did you guys decide that you were going to transition from the athlete to the coach?
Well, we had talked about it in college. We talked about, after our careers were over, we wanted to go into coaching. And, fate, being blessed, the Lord's plan, LMU, that the year after we graduated, started a graduate program in education. And Jody was chosen as the first graduate assistant basketball coach. And I was chosen as the first baseball graduate assistant baseball coach. So,
wow.
So
same year?
Same year.
Same year.
Right. So I started coaching at the college level, graduate assistant, which it was just me and the head coach.
Did you feel you were ready for it, or you didn't know enough to know whether you were ready for it?
I thought I was ready for it. Going through being a senior, being a captain, doing all that. having, been with that coach for, 3 years, he became the head coach at that time, became the head coach my sophomore year. And but I learned a lot. And, we lived off campus, and that was an adventure, being, instead of having everything there on campus and all that. And so we were able to do that and get experience, at that level, which was vital as far as then taking that next step and coaching in high school.
Well, actually, I'm going to go back a little bit further. We were juniors in high school, and our plan was to be doctors.
Medical doctors?
Medical doctors. That was our plan, to be doctors.
Yeah.
And then we saw a guy get in a fight, and he started bleeding, and we both got sick. So the plans changed right there. I can remember that, man. This isn't for us. Let's get into coaching.
Our first coaching experience was when Dr. Burrell called and had a T-ball. His son, John, everybody called him John, was on a T-ball team. And something happened with the coach, and so he talked us into coaching.
We were seniors in high school.
Seniors in high school, coaching a T-ball team. And I remember, coaching and, the kids that we had, but I also remember we couldn't figure out, it was T-ball, so we were trying to teach them to hit it down to third baseline because that's your best chance.
Right. It's a long throw for a T-ball age kid.
But we were getting so frustrated because they get up there, hit it right back to the pitcher.
Right.
And usually the only ones that could play was the pitcher and the first baseman. And so finally we figured out they don't understand who the pitcher is. So we started saying, we're Batman and Robin. We're the Batman team, and these are the Jokers. That pitcher, we call him the Joker. And first baseman's the Joker. Don't hit it to the Joker. Remember that? So they get up there, and they'd be thinking, don't hit it to the Joker. They'd hit it away from the Joker. So that was...
so you were teaching?
You had to figure out.
Won the league.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah.
That's funny that you remember that. You were 18?
Yeah.
You remembered that you won the league?
Yeah, we did.
Competitors.
So, what are some of the core values? Clark as a baseball coach, football, Jody's basketball. What are some of the core values that you guys emphasize, and how do you instill that in your players?
For me, toughness. I want guys that are tough, and if you can, that is a characteristic that I had to learn in college, but it is a lifelong skill. If you have toughness, not only can you succeed athletically, you're set for life. You're going to be able to handle adversity as life comes at you through your job, your marriage, your parenthood. Just having that ability to handle tough times, to the toughness to understand how to handle. Every coach you're handling success or failure. So you have to learn how to handle. They both present challenges. How do you have the toughness and the maturity to handle this success that it's never as good as it seems, and how do you have the toughness to handle the setbacks, the adversities? It's because it's never as bad as it seems. Teenagers live in extremes. It's either great or it's just gosh awful. And so getting them to understand there's some middle ground. But I think that's kind of. If you were to ask somebody, I hope that, somebody that I coach against, they would say, man, his teams are tough.
They do. I've talked to someone. They do. Clark, for you?
Well, for baseball, toughness is where I go with is in perseverance. With baseball can be such a negative sport.
You fail more times than you succeed.
And so perseverance, you have to have that toughness. You have to be able to take the failure. You have to be able to go through the tough times and persevere and don't give up. And so perseverance is so important. And then one of the things I always, as a coach, looked at, especially once I got into it, maybe not the first few years, was positivity. Having a positive outlook and influence, especially with baseball. Because in baseball, you're up there, you strike out. It's a long walk. back to that dugout. You're a shortstop and you miss it, make an error. There you stand.
Right.
You know, it's not like basketball where you run up and down the court, you throw the ball away, well, you're running back up the court.
Right.
You know, you mess up in football, there's always a huddle, or
Right.
not anymore, but, you know, you're always doing something else. You're not just
Standing there.
standing there. Or worst of all, striking out. And if the dugout's way down here, going back to the dugout.
Yeah.
So
You know,
I think I
my dad
learned.
had a few rules, Clark, and one of them was you do not take a called third strike. And I can tell you, the first time I ever saw a curveball, Sheridan Sieber from Bryceville threw it. And the first one he threw me, I didn't see it because I was laying on my stomach, and the umpire called strike one. Well, I didn't think it was a strike, and he. I remember
your eyes were closed.
Because and then he threw me another one, and I stepped out of the box, and I watched, and I said, and it dawned, oh, that's a curveball.
Yeah.
Well, so you know what's coming. So I geared up for the next curveball that I was going to get. Well, he threw me a fastball on the outside,
And there you
and I
stand.
never moved.
Yeah.
And the only thing I did when I took it, I turned and I looked up into the bleachers, and my dad was sitting there, and I mean, it never moved. It just and he, I mean, I could already tell he was furious. And so when the game was over, I get in the car, and my poor mother, my dad said, "Son, if you don't plan on using the bat, I don't see much use in you taking it up there with you."
Yeah,
that's
you know,
right.
that's what we. And I was trying to explain, but it moved. You know, it was the first time I'd ever seen one of those.
Right. So being positive was something that I learned. You know, I wasn't always positive early on, and I learned, you know, this baseball stuff's a little different than coaching football.
And speaking of shortstop, I played shortstop. He played first base. Clark's the only guy in Lake City history to earn two letters, because I lettered him in track. I threw so many over his head. You know, he got plenty of running in, because I think a lot of times when he got ready, because he knew when that ball was coming out, he may have to run it down.
Try to throw him out at second.
Yeah.
That's funny.
And let me say this too: setting high goals. You know, making sure your players know what the expectations are. Talking about them clearly, but you know, even when I had teams that I knew were probably going to be average teams, you still set high goals. You still, you know, try to get them to believe that they can get to that.
All these things that you're talking about, both of you guys, translate perfectly into whatever you do. I mean, it doesn't matter.
Right.
Well, as he's saying, you know, as a high school coach, the faces change, but the expectations don't.
Right.
And I think, you know, having those, you know, the expectations, the standard, you know, I think, you know, at Fulton we say the standard is the standard, you know, and it takes what it takes. And so, again, having those guys that you, the art of coaching is not X's and O's, or, you know, it's getting guys to be better than they are. You know, getting guys to
Because you're not the only guy that runs the pick and roll.
Yeah, to put.
I mean,
put,
other
yeah,
people do too.
Yeah, so to put what, you know, their personal goals aside and all those things right there. So the art of coaching is much more of the intangibles, like Clark was talking about, than it is, you know, strategy or X's and O's.
Mm-hmm. Well, Jody, I will just start with you with this one. What? And I know this is going to be a hard question for you, but what has been some of your proudest moments as a coach? I mean, it could be winning a state championship or seeing a kid get better. I mean, what are some of the most proudest moments that you've had coaching?
You know, I think probably looking back, you know, again, just, you know, the first winning season, my first 3 years at Fulton, you know, we won 2 games. My first year, 5 games. Second year, 6 games. My third year, man, I was questioning myself. It was a good enough. Lord, is this where I'm supposed to be, doing what I'm supposed to be doing? You know, and that fourth year I was there, which, you know, I wasn't smart enough to realize, but it takes a while to change the culture. Mm-hmm. And that fourth year I was there, you know, we won 19 ball games. Beat Austin East for the first time in 18 years. I can remember just, you know, after that, you know, okay, we've got this. But, you know, it's kind of funny, of all the state championships we won, I think my proudest moment was one we lost. 2018. We're the most undersized team in state tournament. 6'2" post player, 6 foot post player, 2 6-foot wings, a 5'8" point guard, and we brought a 6 foot guy off the bench. Man, had no business. We had no business even being there. And just we're the tougher team. Won the first game. Beat a team out of Nashville the second game who started 3 guys 6'5", 6'6". Beat them in double overtime. And then we're playing for a state championship, and I'm thinking, man, here we are. We got no size. We're playing 6 guys. My point guards played every second of the tournament, including the double overtime game. And we're playing a team out of Memphis, and I thought, man, we can hopefully we can keep it close. And with 4 minutes to go, we're up by 7, and I think we kind of hit a little bit of a wall there. We lost by 1, but I just thought, man, it was just the fact that those guys were there to compete at that stage with the limitations that we had. Man, just super proud of those guys.
Clark, for you?
Well, I'd have one in football and one in baseball. In football would have been our first state championship that we won. That was before we went into the private and public, so we played at Vanderbilt in the Clinic Bowl. Back then, that was the Clinic Bowl. We played Good Pasture. But every year since Coach Mesky was the head coach and I coached together, every year we would go to the state playoffs and we would watch every state playoff game. I'm talking 87, 88, 89, 90, all the way. And we would freeze. Usually it'd be cold, and we'd sit there on those aluminum bleachers in Vanderbilt Stadium, and we'd always say, we could just get here one time. We could just get it. And back
every
then,
high school coach I've ever met said they want to be practicing on Thanksgiving.
If we can just,
because that means you're still in it.
If we can just get here one time, and we can just get to a state championship game. So we were in the same division with Alcoa and Sweetwater and Rockwood, and those teams were really good back then and won many state championships, and we were able to get out of that and make it to the state championship game. We played a very Good Pasture team that had the Mr. Football, was the running back they had. They were favored to beat us by a lot of points. It wasn't supposed to be a very good game, but we had a group that had come up together all through like 6th grade, 7th grade, 8th grade, and they were just a group of seniors. We had 10 seniors that were just, rough and played hard and played together and didn't want to let each other down. And we had a running back named Matt Husky that showed Mr. Football, what it's like to play our type of offense and defense. He played linebacker as well. And I was just so proud of those guys and being up top, watching and calling the plays and that was the first time I'd been in like a college press box with a headset on, calling the plays and all that. And it was just like, after it's over, you're just elated, but also at some point you think, oh, we just did that.
Right.
I think I can do this. And so it just gives you a lot of confidence for that next year and the next year.
Well,
then in baseball. Baseball in, it was hard getting, to state playoffs and everything in baseball. And there was one team in the early 2000s that we had to go to Memphis and we had to play ECS, Evangelical Christian School, that was really good. And we upset them. And that put us in the Final Four, which was Baylor, Brentwood Academy, Father Ryan, and Webb. Which of the four do not fit, and it was us, and that was the breakthrough. From that point, when our guys finally realized we can do it, we can play at this level. Now we didn't win that year; we finished 4th out of those 4,
right.
But that was the the pivotal game was beating ECS to get to the Final Four.
Now, didn't Webb build a baseball facility named after you?
Yeah.
I mean, I remember seeing that in the news, and
Opened it up last spring.
you had to be proud of that.
Well, much needed.
Yeah.
All those years we didn't have an indoor facility. We'd have to work out in the gym and go, different hitting facilities, and it was a much needed facility.
Yeah.
And I'm very humbled that they chose to
That's really neat.
name it in my honor.
That's really neat. A couple questions. I appreciate you guys' patience, and you've been very kind. But I guguess the last two, talk a little bit about the people who've had the biggest influence on you guys. Because I opened the whole show tonight by saying you guys were heroes of mine, because I was a 6-7-year-old kid running around Lake City watching you guys play, and hoping that one day I might be able to wear that uniform. And who influenced the influencers? I mean, who mattered to you guys?
Clark mentioned it earlier. Gary Bates was, our elementary school coach, and really looking back, that was when I understood, when I got into coaching, the influence that a coach has, how we revered him, and so I think he was at that age too, and but really, I tell you, I think our dads. My dad was a coach, and he poured so much into me, and then Clark's dad was like my second dad. Was again one of those guys that again I'd rather pluck my eye out than disappoint Mr. Wormsley.
And I was the same way with Mr. Wright.
Again,
he'd give me the
yeah, and to the day he died, he was always Mr. Wormsley. I mean, I'm a grown man. I never called him Ralph out of respect for him. But yeah, you have those people, and growing up in church, and again, we were a hard duo to handle, because we always wanted to be laughing at each other or making somebody else laugh. But gosh, Miss Carmita, his grandmother, Granny Juanita, that just loved us. Jane and Richard they were our Sunday school teachers that loved us when we were unlovable, because again we were insufferable. So there were times that nobody could stand to be around us but each other, because we were just aggravating. But again, we loved it. We loved it.
And people, I mean, the fact that people poured into you guys, and this has nothing to do with our show tonight, but and you guys aren't saying it, I'm going to say it. I know you both have poured into other people. I know, Jody, you're still doing the basketball camp in Lake City at Main Street with Wayne. Clark, the things that you guys have done and invested in kids, and continue to do. A story that you don't know, when I was 35, and I remember the year, I got my first administrative job. I guess Anderson County was desperate, and I got my first administrative job. I was assistant principal at Clinton Middle School, and it was my first night that I was the only administrator at a football game. I was the only one there, and you couldn't have driven a greased penny nail up my hind end with a sledgehammer. I was nervous. And I was just standing there watching the field, and you don't remember this, I know. You came up behind me, and you got up in your daughter was going to Clinton Middle. Mm-hmm. And you came up behind me and got up in my ear, and you said, I didn't know who it was. You said, congratulations. I like to see those Lake City boys doing well. And I turned around, and it was you. And I remembered it then. It meant a lot to me then, and I'm 54, and it still meant a lot to me that you took the time to notice me, to notice that I was in a different, hard place, and to speak a kind word. I mean, that was it. I mean, there was no rah-rahs or whatever. That's all you said. I remembered it then, and I remember it now. So I appreciate you guys taking the time to do that. So here's my last question. If you guys could go back through time into the hallways of Lake City High School, and you could speak a word of advice to an 18-year-old Clark Wormsley and an 18-year-old Jody Wright, what would you tell those boys?
Go ahead, Worm.
Oh, me. I'd say enjoy the experience. Enjoy every bit of the experiences that you're going to be going through, and make as many friends as possible along the way. Cherish every relationship that you go through, the people that you meet. There's a lot of good people that cross paths with you, and don't take them for granted, and you'll be blessed because of the relationships.
Jody?
Man, it's I would tell myself it's going to be hard, but it's going to be worth it. At 18 years old, I was a senior in high school and had just finished 4 of the best years of my life to that point. I mean, I thought the rest of my life's got to be downhill, because this was, again, you've had your dream. You've played ball and ran around with buddies at Lake City High School. But I would tell myself, man, there's so much more out there. The next 4 years are going to be better than these 4 years. And then you're going to, you're going to embark on a career where again, you've got a chance to impact a lot of people. So, again, looking back, it's being good, and that's one of the things my dad told me growing up, told us both. Being good is hard. And if being good was easy, everybody'd do it, regardless of what you're doing in life, from playing an instrument to being good athletically to being good academically. It's hard. It requires sacrifice and work. But man, it's worth it. It's worth it. All the hours that we spent, practicing our craft, and all the hours that we have spent, coaching and mentoring and training, been worth every bit of it. Been worth every bit. Wouldn't change a thing.
Yeah, I want to add about my dad. The most influential person in my life, and still is today. I still,
same for your sister, by the way.
Yeah,
Krista says the same.
Think about him and think about things that he was consistent. If you knew my dad, he was consistent during hard times, during great times. No matter what was going on, he was a rock. He was consistent, and he also taught us to strive for excellence in whatever. If you're going to be playing marbles or something, be the best marble player you can be, and always carry yourself the right way, and try to be the best, whatever you're doing, give it your best effort. But he told me, probably when I first started coaching, and the best advice, and I've shared it with young coaches over the years, but he told me, I never forgot it. He said, as you get into this, you're going to have all kinds of people and all kinds of parents, and there's going to be people that think and say you're the greatest, and there's going to be people that think you're terrible. They'll tell you how great you are. They'll tell you, Coach, you can do this. You're doing this. We love you. And then there'll be people that are talking behind your back, telling you how bad you are, or telling other people how bad you are. And he said, don't believe either one of them. He said, but you have to stay right here, because if you start believing this group, you're going to get the big head, and you're going to be something you're not. If you start believing this group, it's going to bring you down. He said, you're got to stay right here in the middle. You're never as good as some people say you are. You're never as bad as other people say you are.
Yeah.
So that's a great lesson to learn.
Sure.
It's never as good as it seems, never as bad as it sounds.
That's right.
Guys, even at this point, I can still see so many similarities in you guys. I mean, just your outlook on life. And I can't thank you enough for being willing to take the time to drive to Anderson County and to do our first pilot show. When we first started kicking this idea around, I talked to Ryan, and I don't know why, but I said, we need to interview Jody and Clark. And they're like, okay, we'll set it up, and this can come this time, and this. I said, no. We need to interview Jody and Clark together. And
it's hard to tell our stories.
I can't think of a better way to do it. Thank you so much for doing this. I appreciate you guys doing it. And tune in another, I don't know when our next time will be, but we'll do another show, Storytellers with ACTV. Again, thanks to Clark Wormsley, Jody Wright for being our first guest on ACTV Storytellers.